Now, before we go to the question, first, do we go to the question then, or I will start this important issue of revision? Step it out to me. Sanjay sir, so गए.
Hello.
Sanjay is somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay, Pachori boss, any questions?
Questions, as such, no questions, because last point was that I am asking all these points actually been asked by many people.
So
I think questions.
we can move on to the next important issue, that is revision. Step it out to me.
Yes.
Out of the most challenging things in the stapes surgery, one of them is a revision surgery. And this slide is very important because we need to know when to do revisions, when not to do. Because there are by and large certain indications for revisions, like if the patient, and I tell you the best candidate for the revision is one who had undergone stapes surgery, had good result, improved the hearing, and afterwards developed conductive hearing loss, is the ideal candidate for revision. Ideal. Other indications are patient having vertigo, patient having distortion in sound post-operatively, and very rarely for the patients having sensorineural loss. Yes, there are indications for that, even for the SNHL, even though the hearing is not going to improve. But the best candidate is one who had improvement with the previous surgery and then further developed conductive hearing loss. That is the ideal one. So, there are certain issues we are going to discuss about the use of laser. You saw the use of laser since morning. Believe me, the biggest use of laser is in revision.
Yes.
More important than a primary.
Agreed.
If I don't have a laser for the revisions and I need to work at the oval window, I will better abandon. Without laser working in the revision situation at the oval window adhesions, it is something like inviting problem. And secondly, when not to revise, there are situations like patients who have been operated by an experienced surgeon. You know, when we take up revision cases, I always would like to talk to the previous surgeon, whoever he is, to know the real time difficulty he has faced, if he has faced during the previous surgery. Because sometimes you don't have adequate notes, and this is one of the indications when not to revise, when a person who is very experienced has done with a good complete notes, with a good satisfactory intraoperative findings and all, and yet patient is not having improvement, then you have to think twice before revision. Like for example, if somebody is operated by Ashim Desai and come to me for revision, I will think twice. Because now I told you there are certain things which are beyond your control in terms of giving results.
Factors come into play. Yeah.
Yes. And second is, in situations like in the previous findings, if the patient had a huge obliterative autosclerosis and now again coming back for the revisions, again I have to think twice. Because those are the patients which are otherwise most difficult to treat. And third is the pure SNHL cases, because the hearing anyway, even if you revise, the sensorineural component is not going to improve. The only indication in those situations where sensorineural component is and you revise is when there are other things associated like granuloma, post-operative granuloma giving this distortion of the sound and giving vertigo and all that along with.
So can we differ? Can I get Ashim's opinion on a revision in an obliterative case? Is it not that it reoccludes and it just becomes like a primary?
It can reocclude. It can reocclude.
The things that Satish listed, I would not, a revision for an obliterative would not deter me.
Yeah, I would not mind going ahead with revision for an obliterative focus. Most of these times, what would have happened is that because generally people don't saucerize very well.
Yeah, they sort of tunnel it in. Yeah.
There's a funnel inside.
No, I am asking you, boss, you have done an obliterative focus, you have done. And patient coming back after 2 years with the same obliterative focus, would you revise?
Boss, if I do a CT scan, I find obliteration, I will definitely revise.
See,
I may have told-
why my reservation is obliterative is something you cannot always expect a good result like the blue foot plate, number one, and number two, revision at the same time you can't expect as good result as a primary one. Having both the factors together, a revision and obliterative, and that too done earlier in the best hands, is something you have to think twice.
And one more factor is consider the opposite side also.
Yes.
That's another thing.
So,
But obliterative is always bilateral, no? If it's a unilateral conductive loss, by rule it's never obliterative.
But what is the extent of the loss on the opposite side? If that side
that is also determining factor.
You would be forced to operate on this side. Or you'd have to end up with a hearing aid or Baha or whatever.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Satish, continue.
So, once it comes to revision, before planning and having said that you are going to revise, we must have a CT scan. Because in revisions, we get variety of findings, These are the common situations you come across when you explore. And majority of these things can be picked up by a good CT scan. And for that makes you more, ready to handle the situation once you are revising something. Revision stapes is one of the most difficult surgery, believe me, in otology. Most challenging situation you come across are in the revision surgery. And the first revision, if you compare with the second and third revision, is even more difficult. So, CT scan is must, and once you come across any of these findings, you have to handle and address at the same time. Out of them, the biggest issue is at the lower end. See, at the upper end you can find incus necrosis, maybe partial, total, because of the fixed piston below can keep on hitting the incus and can lead to necrosis. A loose crimp piston can keep on hitting, can give incus necrosis. Incus dislocation, a dislocation of the foot plate from the piston from the foot plate also. There are a lot of fibrosis, fibrous tracts, narrow oval window area, piston long, so many regions here listed you can see. Out of them, the most problematic ones are when there is a lot of fibrosis in the low oval window area and the piston is going through that. And more on that, if the previous surgeon has used some oval window seal onto it, that is something which makes your life more difficult.
Yeah.
The reason is, in order to remove the piston with the oval window seal in place because of the previous surgery, whatever was done, it invites adhesions to the vestibular structures inside, and if you try to remove the piston, can be a disaster. So, in these situations, laser is amazing, is most useful, and in a lower wattage defocus laser, you have to vaporize all those adhesions one by one around the piston. In the low wattage, around the piston completely to delineate your foot plate, and then you remove the piston. If you try to otherwise, without delineating foot plate and try to pull the piston, it can lead to a disaster with a damage to the vestibular and organ receptors and can lead to a permanent sensorineural hearing loss.
Because here the enemy is, if you get oozing, if you get blood, you cannot use gel foam adrenaline.
Yes.
That's a complete no-no. So what
Yeah,
you would use in a primary, the thing to do hemostasis without
Yeah,
laser.
here bleeding is a big chaos then, big chaos. So without doing a laser, without using a laser, you cannot justify dividing all the fibrous tracts.
So the precision cannot be achieved without the laser.
Cannot be. And if you try to pull the piston with so much of fibrosis at the lower end, it's a disaster. You are going to end up
You
complete
can-
hearing loss.
Then you cannot proceed with doing the job on the foot plate. Getting the piston out is not a problem.
Yeah, you don't know what to do next.
What to do next?
Yeah,
correct.
because many a times when you remove the, when you vaporize this, you get to know the exact dimension of the fenestration done earlier. If there had been obliteration completely of the previous fenestration, if the piston was going in the foot plate inside or not, you never know. So all these things are obvious once you vaporize all the adhesions around the piston.
And in fact, the sequence is even before you remove the piston, try and get maximum of the adhesions vaporized,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
so that you can assess the lower end of the piston much better.
Yeah. Now in this situation, if the previous surgeon had used the Teflon piston, is an advantage. But if the previous surgeon used a metallic piston, again a big problem. Because any single fire on the metallic piston is going to transmit the fire energy to the vestibule.
Yes.
If it is a Teflon, it melts. It doesn't transfer the sound energy so easily. Though even you are using a low wattage, but if it is a Teflon, it is an advantage. Here something, if you are using a metallic piston, is a disadvantage. This is one clear disadvantage over here. Ashim, you have an experience of 1200 revision stapes,
900.
900. Can you point out what is the commonest situation you have found?
The commonest situations are the top two, incus necrosis and dislocation of the lower end of the piston. The third commonest is the narrow stapedotomy.
Okay. Now, for the audience, information, and there cannot be a better person than you to tell. If there is incus necrosis you have found on revision, quickly we have to answer all these situations. If there is an incus necrosis, what would you do?
Okay, so let's start with.
Ashish, we need your comment if you do something different.
Yeah, I will come in. Yeah.
So we'll start from the distal end more proximally. Now, if you have a slight necrosis of the lenticular process and the piston has slipped off, the best option is to slip it back on and put a Y-shaped cartilage from the inferior annulus up to the edge of the incus.
Okay, can you repeat from the incus to the inferior annulus?
I'll show a diagram in 2 minutes.
Okay, I got your point. From the inferior annulus to incus.
Yes, to the incus.
And then?
Now that is when there is thinning and slight necrosis of the lenticular process.
Okay, and
Now
then?
you have more necrosis. If the long process is partially or totally necrosed, then obviously you need to do a Malleus stapedotomy.
Okay, can I interrupt?
Yes,
When you
please.
put a cartilage from the inferior annulus to the incus, what you do afterwards? Use a piston?
Use the same piston, put it back on.
Okay. And secondly,
And
don't
this cartilage will hold that piston in place.
do you ever think of lengthening the incus by using bone cement rather than Malleus stapedotomy directly?
You can do that if there is partial, if there's only a slight amount, you can do that.
So I will come in instead of so the issue is if the lenticular process is necrosed, can we offer an extra stability to the piston, to the loop of the piston, so it does not slip away? That is the surgical situation we have. So what I do is I actually use the eolobule fat and I go across from the long process of the incus across the loop towards the lenticular process, and I sort of promote fibrosis there.
Fair enough.
Are you getting it,
Yes.
Satish?
After
Yeah.
putting the piston?
After putting the piston, yeah.
Okay.
So because there is no lenticular process there on the
But
on
but
the distal
Ashish,
side.
I've seen you use bone this thing.
And so the bone cement also, of course, yeah. But this is what I used to do, and there have been times when I've used either a fascia or a perichondrium, like a strip, which goes and sort of wraps some part of it superiorly to basically make some connection, a fibrous connection between the loop and the long process of incus. This is what I
Do
used to
that
do.
for a thin incus. If
Bone
a-
cement has actually taken away now. That challenge is no more there.
Okay. So now coming to the second situation, dislocation of the foot of the piston. Your piston is out of the oval window.
Yeah, this is a short piston. That is what led to this process.
One thing I'll always mention, whatever you do at the lower oval window in the revision situation, you always advocate a vein graft. You agreed or not?
most of the times, yes.
In revisions,
99% of the time.
In a situation like the number 2, if the piston, well, this was a short piston, therefore it came out with the perpendicular movement. It has come and rested on the edge of the fenestra. I would
That
simply
case you don't need.
No,
That case
it's
you
not
don't need.
always the short piston, Ashish. Sometimes even an adequate length piston, which is, placed in an angular way, not straight piston, it comes to the edge of the foot plate and ultimately, stuck to it.
unless it is short, it cannot come to the edge. That is why that hanging test is important in Ashim's thing.
Yeah.
It has to be at the, not in the so the diameter of the fenestra is also important. If the diameter is too big, then it can, with a perpendicular action, come to the edge.
So the straight away your answer is you will just clear the area and put a longer piston,
Clear the
or
area.
or just adequate size piston, whatever it is.
Correct.
Okay, fibrous text we have already discussed. We'll vaporize with a laser.
It's
Narrow-
the equivalent of a debrider on a nasal polyp. Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt here. Going back to your point of dislocation of the end of the piston, assuming that you put a slightly longer piston, Ashish, would you desecrate the endosteal membrane or would you put it on top of the endosteal membrane?
So it's always a dilemma, and I always end up breaking the endosteal membrane and having my own surgical trauma for a predictability. I don't know why, but I always keep on. And I remember the discussion I've had with ABR Desai sir, where actually the endosteal membrane bulges out. And I
Yeah.
think it was in Pune, BJ Medical College,
Yeah.
that he was.
That
being
is
so
true,
treated.
Ashish.
And I think 3.5 millimeter piston length he put on a bulged endosteal membrane. I remember that.
Yeah,
But
that
I
is true
also-
because the pressure inside the vestibule is always more than the middle ear.
That
Middle
is
ear,
where we come in with the cartilage, which is a larger diameter.
So
the
if you use the piston, it can perforate or it will perforate.
it will
yeah.
perforate.
Yeah. So I actually perforate it and I allow a new one to form. I mean, if it.
So that is right when the fenestra is appropriate size. But if it's a subtotal platinectomy, my general suggestion would be to use a cartilage on top of the endosteal membrane.
Okay. So that
Okay.
those are words of experience and
So
wisdom.
if you have done
Second suggestion
the
would be that before we go through that endosteal membrane, if
Yeah.
possible, you use a disc to press on the endosteal membrane, because when the endosteal membrane is intact, you will get a round window reflex.
Okay.
so
Because sometimes what happens, bone dust causes multiple little partitions forming under the foot plate.
yes. So bottom line is when there is a platinectomy or large defect, it is better to avoid using a piston and use a cartilage to prevent future problems.
If it's too large, yes. If
Yes.
it's a subtotal platinectomy or a platinectomy.
Now situation piston too long a piston you have to remove, put a vein graft and put a next piston of adequate size. Perineum fistula, anything, okay, can I ask one thing? How do you suspect post-operative perineum fistula?
When the bone conduction of the operated ear is poorer than the bone conduction of the unoperated ear after an initially good result.
So that could be because of many reasons.
No, but this is the most important reason.
Many of these patients I have seen, they have a typical, complaint of distortion of the sound.
Yeah, see, I'm not looking at the classical indications.
Yeah.
Classical indication of post-op vertigo, Tullio phenomenon, distortion of sound, poor word discrimination scores, or sudden loss of hearing, a loss of hearing after barotrauma, all of these are indicators. But I'm talking about the subtle indicator of really nothing except a slow gradual deterioration of the bone conduction of the operated ear vis-a-vis the unoperated ear.
Yeah. And how often it is fluctuating?
It does fluctuate. It is I would say at least 25% of cases it fluctuates.
And we have seen a patient who was operated, for the stapes 5 years back somewhere and came with a fistula. So it can
How was
happen
the
any.
hearing initially?
Pardon?
How was the hearing initially?
Initially was good. Had a deterioration, fluctuation, and was a classical fistula.
Long piston.
Yes. So it can happen anytime.
Yeah.
Your
Now-
experience with bone dust, because sometimes we hepatochemist use a drill at the time of curating that attic area. And then bone dust goes inside, and if you don't wash it regularly, means clearly, then after sometimes, or in second, it's a recent case, have you found any evidence of that bone dust?
Not really. Not really. Not for the.
I tell you one thing,
But of the foot plate, yes.
boss, regarding the bone dust, I tell you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if the bone dust goes inside or your any instrumentation which if traumatize the vestibular end organs, the next problem which is imminent is the BPPV. That is not uncommon. The reason is all this bone dust settles down in the vestibule, and the most dependent part of the vestibule and the vestibular system is the posterior canal. It settles down in the posterior canal. Utricle, if injured, the otoconia released from the macula of the utricle settle down in the posterior canal, and ultimately they give rise to BPPV. It's not uncommon. So in any given situation, if there is trauma happens to occur to the vestibule, you can expect the patient having vestibular disorder, and BPPV is amongst them the commonest one. Now coming to the next situation, incus
But no, to answer then, does he need to be cleaning the bone dust that is generated by drilling the foot plate?
No,
is that
no.
your question?
No, nothing is required to be done. Nothing is actually required to be done. The more you try
The
to,
pressure in the vestibule is
yes, leave it. If you try to fiddle out anything there, you are trying to worsen the situation.
Yeah.
Now that this is an important incus displacement, can I ask one thing? In the primary situation, like when I was operating, if somebody happens to dislocate the incus, what is the primary thing you would do there? What would be the overall your scenario management?
Ashish, you want to take that?
No, you take that, yeah.
Okay, fine. So there are two aspects of incus displacement. One is subluxation of the medial incudal joint without much displacement, and the second one is a very gross displacement. Now, in both these situations, you'll have a situation where the superstructure has yet been disturbed or been undisturbed. Now, if there is a minor subluxation and the entire superstructure is undisturbed, you can continue with your surgery as planned, leaving the superstructure intact and doing a reverse trapedotomy as far as possible. If there is no superstructure and there is a gross displacement, the better thing would be to put a cartilage or a piston connection from the repositioned incus, put it back in its normal anatomic position, step out, put a piece of silastic separating the long process from the drum without entering the foot plate, and then enter the oval window at a second stage.
Second stage after?
After 6 months.
So you will expect this joint to be back
There will
in.
be a pseudoarthrosis. Many times I've seen a pseudoarthrosis. I've seen cases done elsewhere who have been referred to me.
Or if in the primary situation, if it is completely dislocated,
then you would need
do
to
still it will come to, still you will be able to place back into the proper place?
If the superstructure is intact, absolutely. But if
Okay.
the superstructure is gone, then I would go ahead and do a Mealy's trapedotomy
At the same sitting.
at the same stage.
Yes, same thing happened with me, I think 2-3 years back. I was doing it somehow with the curate that got dislocated and incus was totally dislocated. So superstructure was intact. So at that time I tried, I would say I waited for some time, and I waited for 3 months. And I kept that incus on the superstructure, and after 3 months it was almost in the normal anatomical position.
Yes,
Now-
it does.
One suggestion is to put a small piece of silastic, very thin silastic between the long process and the drum, so that the drum does not pull away the incus.
Achha, what is your protocol?
Gel foam around the incudostapedial joint and the incudomalleolar joint,
Yes.
soaked in blood.
What is your protocol for not revising patient until certain period of time? Like you don't revise within 6 weeks, 6 months, 1 year.
For what? For a routine,
Revision surgery,
for revision surgery, minimum 6 months.
minimum 6 months. And before that, we should allow it to be like this to heal or whatever.
No. Now again, if you are getting progressive sensory neural hearing loss, so on and so forth,
This is for conductive loss.
pure conductive, I would wait for 6 months for everything to settle.
The tissue remodeling, it is just that much.
Achha, have you ever seen granuloma?
Honestly, I have not seen an oval window.
I have not
granuloma.
seen Satish. I think it was a fiction generated by the previous surgeons when things were not as sophisticated. You know, all that powder or glove powder, granuloma, foreign body. We
No,
don't
no,
really see. They
well,
were blaming something and imagining it to be a.
But
I am
it has been, see, it has been reported to have a granulomatous lesion at the foot plate. And there are many there are many regions people are giving, not only the powder or gel form or anything, but even a persistent perineum fistula can result into mucosal reaction, autoimmune reaction, many other things. But granulomas have been definitely reported. We have not seen, that is different. But how come there are so many cases reported? So
Earlier
many.
they used to, the immediate post-op catastrophe, they used to blame it on a foreign body granuloma, no? From
Yes.
what I know from the history.
If you don't understand anything, there could be granuloma,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
So,
Like-
coming to the Malleus stepidotomy, if you are doing, are you using that ball valve piston now?
Absolutely.
That is amazing. Now
Very
the
happy.
question number one, what according to you is the best site for fixation of the piston on the Malleus?
Although Fish recommends fitting at the distal to the lateral process of the Malleus, I prefer fitting it at the neck.
Neck.
Yes. But now
Me
another thing
also.
I do is I drill the neck a little bit to
Yes,
thin it
yes.
out.
Yes, neck is, to me also the neck looks better. You can make a, using a diamond drill, you can make a fissure over there and you can pick your piston.
Yes.
Ashish, you're saying anything?
I have done malleus stepidotomies, but I would not like to do it anymore. I just feel that the precision, the whole obsession with fit and size and length that we are with the incus stepidotomy, all that goes for a toss in a malleus stepidotomy. All that we respect and worship here, it goes away. And then the basic thing about the movement that you said in nanometers to microns, the whole dynamics changes. And in today's day, when everybody is flying all the time, I sort of think that a malleus stepidotomy in my hands, I think I should not be doing. Technically, I can do the fenestra, I can fit it, but I just don't know the perfection. I don't know what is the right way to measure the length, what is the right angle at which it should be. These are my reservations now.
Ashim,
Completely in agreement with you, Ashish, because our obsession with measurement is such. But having said that, when you are left with no other choice, the neck, the attachment at the neck is better than the attachment at the
No,
manubrium
that I agree, because I think
because of the lesser
because
movement.
it is well protected. It's not direct.
no, the range of motion is
The
less.
movement is very small.
Yeah, at the the manubrium of the Malleus, the range of motion is sometime more than a millimeter.
And
that
the
can
best
be
way to
hazardous.
measure- The best way to measure is to put it in position before the fenestration.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that-
ball valve joint is amazing. Even if you once you put the
In
piston
fact,
with
I
a
used to fix it to the neck, keep it there, move it aside, and then make the fenestra and then move it.
that problem is over if you are using a ball valve joint piston.
I
do
haven't
Even
used it.
you
I
put
haven't used
you anchor to the Malleus first or put to the fenestra, still you can change the angulation height of the piston any point of time. That's the beauty of that piston. Now, coming to the situation of second year, like you asked about the findings we have discussed, Ashish, you had a booklet earlier with ABR Desai sir had given me once,
Yeah.
mentioning that in the second year you will not do the same technique or you will do something else. What is that idea in the second year?
That was the original method of thinking when we did a direct piston on 1 year. Dad always thought that to do something more physiological, like doing a posterior cross perichondrial.
But why?
However,
See,
that
why is the
may-
patient coming to you for second year once he is happy with the first year?
Because he's damn
What-
happy with the first year.
And you have already given enough time of 2 years or so for the second year.
Correct.
So
No, so we have changed now. So now, if because we do the cost technique on one side, we definitely will go ahead and do the other year without reservation 1 year down the road.
so what is your recommendation once somebody has undergone tympanoplasty, had associated autosclerosis? How long would you wait to consider for the stapes surgery?
1 year. See now, if it's bilateral otosclerosis, I'd operate on the opposite side for the stapes. But if both, if there is only one-sided hearing loss, otosclerosis with CSOM, I would wait for about 9 months to a year before I do the stapes surgery.
Great. So that is important message. Sanjay sir, any questions?
Good to have
Before
Yes,
we
we
move
are
ahead?
having few questions.
Yes, please.
This is from Dr. Girish. He's having so many questions. Let me have one by one.
You
He's
take
from
the
Bhilai.
issues, you take the issues which we have not discussed now.
Yeah. So, did you find any reactionary exudate post-op staphylococcus causing conductive loss?
Reactionary?
Exudate.
Exudate.
Not really. See, what all can happen post-op is a serious labyrinthitis. A serious labyrinthitis, believe me, once you open the vestibule, it is inevitable and it doesn't give much problem. And it resolves over a period of time. The problem comes when it converts to a, the purulent labyrinthitis, and that is disaster. Otherwise, I don't think any exudate or anything that happens to other post-TAPI surgery.
I have had one
Another
case on a
question.
fifth post-op day facial paralysis.
Yes,
On the fifth post-operative day, everything went perfectly well.
viral,
Yeah,
It's a viral.
viral reactivation
yeah.
most of the time.
So it's very scary, but to face a patient like that.
No,
What's
but
it?
as long as it's late, it always recovers.
Yeah.
And one was a very good publication recently. This viral reactivation happens to occur, though it is not common, but whatever, the incidence is more when you use laser because of the heat.
So no, this
Heat
happened before.
reactivates the trigeminal, dormant viruses more than the regular surgery.
I have not seen that actually.
I have seen two cases.
I have seen many years.
Resolved over the period of time on its own.
Yeah, they recover. In fact, recover quite quickly.
Okay. Another
Occasionally,
question
yes, but I have
is.
not seen the increase. Increase.
With the laser, you're saying, okay.
No, I have seen this. I have seen 8-10 cases, but never with the laser.
Yes, sir. Next question.
Okay. Another is primary incus dislocation. Can it be fixed in the incudomalleolar joint with bone cement?
He has already answered, Dr. Ashim has answered. There are two kinds of situation of dislocation, a partial or a complete one. And if you reposite it properly in the partial one, it remains in place. In a total one, you can think of using bone cement. Some people use fibrin glue also.
Yeah.
It can work. So it is a matter of apposition more than using all these materials, which makes the
But
difference.
I think the point is that if you use a bone cement, it is more predictable. So it's
Yes.
a good idea. Because
Yeah,
it's not,
but see, bone cement, it's not the mechanical approximation of the incus and malleus. This
Yeah.
incudomalleal joint, it is more important. It is a gliding joint. This is one of the most important joint, as far as the impedance is concerned. So we have to give joint rather than a bony opposition. Yes,
Rather than the rigid fixation.
yes. So next.
Next is I have a query that is there any difference between the necrosis, neo-ossification caused by the cochlea caused by the meningitis and the other caused by the otosclerosis?
Yeah, it is by and large the management is same, but it is altogether different. The reason is in otosclerosis it is the osteoid bone deposition. This is the otosclerotic bone deposition in the cochlear lumen or in the cochlear different areas, or the bone is replaced by such kind of a bone. Meningitis is a inflammatory bone deposition. It is a reaction, inflammatory reaction which leads to osteogenic reaction and bone deposition. That is different, and that happens mostly with the pneumococcal meningitis afterwards. So these are two different situations, and this bone and dealing with these two situations is altogether different. I am coming to it when I discuss the far advanced otosclerosis.
Okay. I read somewhere this particular point that in otosclerosis mostly the basal turn is involved. The first half of the basal turn is involved
Yes, to begin with.
rather than the whole of the cochlea.
No, completely can get involved. That is stage 3 from the Roteville's classification. Diffuse, discrete, confluent involvement of the cochlea with multiple cavitation, and that is worse a situation you can imagine. The reason is you don't know where the lumen is. There are so many cavitation because of the autosclerosis, everything looks like a cochlear lumen. So you never know where the sensory epithelium is to be stimulated. So that is worst.
Okay. So we are finished up with the question. You can carry on.
Okay, so we coming to the very important part before ending the session, the far advanced autosclerosis, and this is important. Up to 3 to 4% of the patients of the autosclerosis ultimately develop this, and we have already discussed the definition. When it goes, the air conduction loss goes beyond 85 dB and the bone conduction measurable, and we are left with limited options in those situations what to do. So decision making is important, and then management is equally important because it is not all that easy. So I mentioned in the beginning, we take into consideration 3 criteria for the decision making. One is, like Dr. Ashim Desai said, the speech discrimination score. Second is the airborne gap, and the third is the CT scan, Rotavir's classification, that how severe is the cochlear involvement. That is again a decision making. Everything is a value. Now, for example, patients who have a good speech discrimination, the first choice is stapedectomy, followed by hearing aid. In spite of having a profound loss, stapes surgery is the indication, followed by hearing aid, whatever time it can sustain. The question is, if this doesn't work, CI is always a viable option. It doesn't violate the possibility of the good result with the CI. The CI result is always an option. So in situations when you have a good speech discrimination, the first choice for surgery is stapes. The reason is, it works, number one, hearing along with the hearing aid, and it gives a better hearing quality than CI itself.
Yes.
The dynamic range of hearing of the acoustic hearing is 1000 times better than the electrical hearing, which is a less dynamic range. The music appreciation, everything is better with the acoustic hearing than the electrical hearing. And secondly, this operation additional, in case it doesn't work, this additional operation of stapes surgery doesn't cost much. Your stapes, the CI option is always there. The only thing against this is, if the CT scan shows diffuse lesions, and if there is a possibility of CI insertion at that time, better to go with the CI, because if you wait, it can further destroy the cochlea, and then you are the option of cochlear implantation is over. So CT scan is a decision making factor in any given situation. So all 3 things are important. If CT shows limited lesions, stapes is the answer, except poor speech discrimination. Suppose CT is not showing a too much of involvement of the cochlea, but the speech discrimination is poor, airborne gap is very less, better to go with the hearing aid, and then cochlear implant if it doesn't work. So the indications of 3 things are different. For stapedotomy, if the speech discrimination is good and there is AB gap, with not having too much of destruction of the cochlea on CT scan. Hearing aid is good when there is no airborne gap and the cochlea doesn't have that much of destruction. And cochlear implant is straight away when all these things fails, or straight away when there is diffuse cochlear involvement. So this is to be very, very clear in decision making when a patient with far advanced autosclerosis comes. Now, once it comes to cochlear implantation, like you asked before, cochlear implantation in these patients is not all that easy. Intraoperatively, postoperatively, the problems are always there. Intraoperatively, difficult to find the lumen sometimes. You have to drill away. If it is limited to the basal tongue, you can drill away that lesion and pass your electrode, and then it is like a normal implant. But if it is diffuse cavitation, sometimes you are in the wrong cavity. Sometimes you may have to do a multiple drill out in different turns to make sure that you are in the you are stimulating the sensory epithelium only, not the cavity of the otosclerosis. So insertion is challenging because of the destruction of the cochlea due to otosclerosis, and even if you have done a good surgery, post-operative course is difficult due to many reasons, and the biggest problem is non-auditory stimulation, because this bone is not as dense as a regular otic capsule. It becomes more conducive, more hypodense, and whatever current you are using with the cochlear implant can be passed or can be circulated, can be diffusely go out of the cochlea to stimulate the surrounding things, like facial nerve, which is in close proximity to the upper basal turn of the cochlea where the labyrinthine segment passes. It can stimulate the Jacobson nerve on the promontory even, giving the pain in the ear. It may stimulate the vestibular system in the close proximity of the cochlea as well. So anything it can happen, and that becomes sometimes a difficult thing to treat. Though it happens, doesn't happen in 100% of the patient, but once it happens, it's a very, very difficult thing. So once it happens to occur, what all you can do? You have to localize what is happening. If it is a facial stimulation, it is always the upper basal turn which is responsible, and you can reduce the current of those electrodes. If it doesn't work, you can deactivate those electrodes. If it still persists, you may have to explant it. And second thing, during insertion also the insertion of the electrodes, it is better to have perimodular electrodes, so the current flow out of the cochlea is farther. It is not as much as current flow out as compared to the lateral wall electrodes. So keep the electrodes away from the lateral wall of the cochlea for the too much of the current to pass out of the cochlea. So this is one of the indications for perimodular electrodes. And another thing nowadays, recently, the thing advocated is, we have no experience, is a direct acoustic implant, cochlear implant, DACI. DACI is what? It preserves the acoustic hearing rather than implant where we give electric hearing, even in the profound loss. So this involves a surgery wherein an artificial incus is implanted, a titanium incus, and a stepidotomy with a titanium piston is done with the loop of the stepidotomy is on that artificial incus, the titanium incus, and then the loop goes inside the foot plate, and then the mechanical system stimulates the artificial incus, which is known as an actuator, to induce vibration to the inner ear and give good hearing. So this way it preserves the acoustic hearing rather than the cochlear implant, and it is supposed to give a good result. So we have no experience, but the literature is now more and more coming out in favor of this DACI rather than cochlear implant, because in case it fails, still cochlear implant is the option.
So it's got.
Huh?
So you remove the normal incus, put a whatever the
Actuator.
Okay.
Just one point I wanted to make about the audiology for far advanced otosclerosis. Again, in these cases, Weber, the Rene is negative.
Yeah, your voice is breaking.
Another suggestion.
Your voice is breaking.
Bone conduction at 3000 hertz. Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear better? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay. The thing is that bone conduction at 3 kilohertz is very important for judging far advanced otosclerosis. Because generally you have nothing by air, nothing by bone. 2 kilohertz, the bone conduction is down due to the Carhart notch. 4 kilohertz is down because of the extreme high frequency involvement of the basal turn. So 3 kilohertz is where, if you can find hearing at 70 dB or 75 dB, that is where you'd be able to do your stepidotomy on that particular ear. The reason I say this, as most audiologists don't do 3 kilohertz audiogram. So I recommend that all your audiologists do 3 kilohertz audiogram in such cases. And the second one is to judge the speech discrimination. Your regular headphone speech discrimination is at around 100 dB. you want SDS at 120 dB. So we suggest doing speech discrimination scores using an old type pocket model hearing aid like a BM78 hearing aid. When you use that, you are giving 120 dB of sound because for real speech discrimination, you should be at least 30 decibel supra threshold. So these are the two practical points I just wanted to put it for far advanced otosclerosis.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions?
No.
So one young lady just have come for the surgery. She has to go for marriage 1 month after this. Will you go for the surgery? Because after 1 month she has a planned surgery, operation, marriage.
Yes, of course.
Of course. Absolutely.
Okay. That's question asked
Of
by
course, I will
Dr.
recommend vein interposition in that case.
Mr. Dr. Dhaval Patil is asking something. That was the last question from his side.
Is it related to a pregnancy or just a marriage? If there's a planned
pregnancy,
pregnancy,
I think
would rather
he
do the
Ashish.
steroidotomy before.
Yeah,
Ashish.
the point would be the pregnancy actually.
Ashish, I'll mention one thing here about this issue of reality of the this autosclerosis, whether it worsens with pregnancy or not.
Yeah.
You know how this issue came out?
Huh?
This was the issue raised in 1939 in Germany. That time the German medical board had certain guidelines. They issued the guidelines to abort all pregnancies or do sterilization for all diseases which have a genetic cause. So some surgeon, some Dr. Griffenstein published a paper to sterilize all women having autosclerosis or either abort the pregnancy or sterilize. And then ultimately it turned out to be a political edict by the Nazis to purify the race. That was the reason behind. There is nothing to do. Autosclerosis has nothing to do with the pregnancy.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm sorry, my knowledge about pregnancy was in the Nazi era. That means. So the conclusion: pregnancy does not affect the progress of
Not at all.
autosclerosis.
Not at all.
Okay.
If, however, one caveat that I would like to put here is that if there is a pregnant lady or a lady who is considering pregnancy for otosclerosis, it's better to operate on one side for her social requirements and then following all her childbearing function, then to operate on the opposite side.
Yeah, that can
So
be.
the rule of 6 months and 1 year does not apply.
But why, if pregnancy is not having a effect?
No, not for the effect. But generally, if you're doing a piston, you find obliterative otosclerosis, doing a direct piston, so on and so forth. Because of the forces of childbearing and all that, during delivery and all that, you don't want both the ears to potentially be affected. So this is on the side of abundant caution.
So you're free now, Miss. One actually, everything finished.
Pocket.
I have almost 100 small clips of 10 second, 20 second regarding the stapes surgery. So I've just selected few only. Can it?
Yeah.
One interesting one that new people should not do such mistakes, and this would be just starting with the simple one, because
And
I think
meantime, those who are online, our next webinar is on Thursday. That is a live surgical demonstration of various ear, nose, and throat surgeries, 4 p.m.
Also, Satish, later on, if time permits, can I show a 2-minute clip or a 3-minute clip on the handling the prolapsed facial nerve?
Yes, we would like to see. We would like to see.
Yeah, we didn't speak about the facial at all. Yeah.
Rajiv, please proceed.
Yeah. What is the earliest stage you have done, Miss? Earliest stage of the surgery?
I'm sorry?
What is the earliest of the surgery you have?
At earliest age?
Yeah.
8 years.
And okay. I think you should write, because some issues with this presentation. I think you can start it.
Okay.
You show your facial.
Okay, so here you can see a very heavily prolapsing facial. Now, when you first look at, can you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, now when you first look at it, you can imagine that you can actually drill out part of the posterior crust and directly access the foot plate. But in this case, it was not so. Although this posterior crust is appearing very thick, the
It's
foot
very
plate,
wide, but not thick. It's transparent. You see the color?
yeah,
It's
but and it is
No,
hidden.
no, this is overhang. How much of the oval window was covered by the facial?
You can
that
see,
now
you
once
can see
we
that once when I remove this, you will see about 80% plus is covered by the oval window.
so
Okay.
now Ashim is drilling the posterior crust
Yes.
from
So now,
inferior to the
yes, I'm drilling always from,
because the burr cannot go towards the facial. So he's
exactly, it's always drilling from inferiorly in the axis of the foot plate.
This is one area where laser is contraindicated when the facial nerve is prolapsing or facial nerve is dehiscent. You have to be
Yes,
very cautious about it.
you have to be very, very careful here. Okay, so now you can see the foot plate is there.
Yes.
This is promontory. This is
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, the way that I use to disarticulate crack the anterior crust is to twist it on the axis of the anterior crust.
The incudostapedial joint is disarticulated.
Can you see it's a twisting movement?
See, we are using a
And with this
twisting
movement, the chance of mobilization is almost nil.
There is no
Really?
I think you should rewind and show it one more time.
What? I didn't get. What are you saying? What? Twisting?
so
I'm
once
twisting
the
it.
crust is drilled through.
I'm twisting the
So he is pushing.
structure on
It's
the
a
axis.
rotational
It's a
movement.
rotational fracture.
Incudostapedial joint is disarticulated.
It's a rotational fracture.
And
So
as you
he's
see, we are
yeah.
using a twisting movement. And this twisting movement ensures that there is no chance of subluxation or dislocation of the foot plate. So the safety superstructure is now
So
extracted.
you see, the foot plate is here. This is all promontory. So
And
I'm
it's
drilling a little
really
bit
niche, so a little bit of saucerization is required.
at very, very slow
low
speed.
RPM.
You are drilling the promontory nice.
Slightly.
The edge.
Just the edge of the
This is a
promontory.
DNA skeeter.
And now the shaft of the burr touched the sheath of the facial nerve, but
So
no
what?
problem.
Nothing happens. I've done it many, many times.
Of the foot plate.
You have to go very slowly. You cannot let heat generate.
And not for too long.
Yeah. And here you can see I'm actually
And
stuffing gel
situating
foam
it between the stapes,
to compress the facial nerve out.
plate, and the facial nerve.
Yes.
So what happens that there is gentle compression by the gel foam as the gel foam absorbs the fluids and the capillary oozing.
Now you have
See,
space.
slowly you are getting to see more and more of the nerve,
Gain better
of the foot
visualization
plate.
of the foot plate. Once you see
So
enough,
you did this sequentially several number of times.
Yes, it just keeps going on and on.
But as you can see, we need more space.
See, this is a 0.5 millimeter burr.
0.6 millimeter burr. We are using a BNS heater, and over a period of time, we are slowly skeletonizing the foot plate, as well as lowering the promontory.
See, now you keep stuffing dry gel foam out
Is
there.
required in
and it
order
keeps
to
expanding.
access the foot plate in a better way. Once again, we are using dry gel foam to create greater space.
So let's just go on.
Yeah. Now the color is changing.
So now
You can see the foot plate.
The blue, yeah.
A little bit of
And then more gel foam. It just goes on and on.
But now the part of the promontory, oh, okay. So the
Yeah, yeah.
fenestra is including a little edge of the promontory.
No. It is exactly in the foot plate. You can see.
see,
At the lower edge of the foot plate.
I've just saucerized the promontory a little bit, made it slope
For the axis of the burr.
for the
2
axis.
millimeter break.
Beautiful.
and then of course my piston, and that's it.
It's very important.
So this was an accidental finding, or you were knowing it?
3.4
Sorry?
millimeters piston.
Was this an accidental finding, or you knew it?
No, this was an expected finding because I'd done a CT scan on this.
Okay.
In fact, the CT scan showed a greater degree of prolapse, so I told the patient I may not give any improvement at all. So anyway, that's about it.
It is applied.
Lovely.
And now again, even in this, I will do my hanging test and bending
what is
test.
known as a hanging test.
You know,
It doesn't matter if the shaft of the piston is touching or abutting against a
doesn't make any difference. Doesn't
It
injure.
doesn't matter. It's a Teflon piston or titanium, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that was about it. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
brilliant.
these facial nerve abnormalities, prolapse
We are very sure.
onto the stapes foot plate is not uncommon, and the reason is developmental. At the time when the stapedial crura develop is the time where the facial nerve develops, and we have seen many a times facial nerve completely covering the oval window, even coming to the promontory. And in one of the case, the facial was too low that we had to drill above it and put a piston in the vestibule above the facial nerve. So in situations, I could show that video, is not here, wherein we did a vestibular fenestration above the level of the facial nerve. So that can happen in many a situation, the facial nerve abnormalities. But the best thing is you can predict all these abnormalities through a CT scan easily.
Can you see something on the video?
Yes, boss.
Louder.
Yeah. Because this is regarding few tips. I think for newcomers, those who are starting surgery, you should keep in mind this point that, like, suppose you are there doing surgery, while taking the incision that Dr. Satish told in advance, don't take a long flap. Take a proper 5 to 6 millimeter flap, because if you take a very long flap in the posterior canal wall, that can create problem during surgery. Though you can manage very well, why to get frustrated during surgery? That is one more point. Second is that suppose don't use a drill so much because that I discussed that bone dust can create problem later on, and that's why blind curating at that end, because like the surgeon is doing this drilling using drill. But at this stage, if you use the curate, whether it is good quality, bad quality, and just see the surgeon is doing, and just see the curate, he at this end he's blind now, and that should be avoided. Just see the response reaction just after the curate, what happens to the IS
It
joint.
should be under vision, you mean to say?
Yeah, now the incus is gone. That because of the blind curating, the incus is dislocated, and now you can imagine what will happen to this case. You have to abandon the surgery, and suppose once it is happened, your incus is hypermobile, then I think best time, never fiddle with this incus. Don't try to put, even after you have done this in your hole. But I think at this step, put a wing graft and abandon the surgery. Don't try to play with this hypermobile incus, otherwise you will destroy the ear. That is, these are real-time videos. So I think this step should be avoided. As I told you, just hold it for a few months, or if you are want to do in single stage, then go for the malleosteroidal. That is one more obstacle. So these points I think we should avoid, and one step is point. So yeah. There's one more point. I think this, as Satish told, okay, just never use a better quality piston and never compromise with piston, because once, if you are using a bad quality piston, if you have to manipulate it, then just see the quality of the piston. It is very bad. So I think better to go for a good quality, whether it is that your choice. And never suppose during surgery, it happens with many people that during putting piston, it goes inside. And this is the time you should have patience. Give 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, take rest, and then close your eye, then use a proper instrument at this level. Never try to fiddle with this to take it out in a hurry, and just use a right angle or whatever instrument you have, and just take it out. Otherwise, in this procedure, you must have done damage, I think 5 to 10 decibels, as must have given 5 to 10 decibel as on loss to this patient. So at this level, keep patience and do and this I think this was already shown vein graft. So I think this is the before starting learning stapes surgery, you should know how to take a vein graft, because you never know what time you have to go for this vein grafting, and this I already shown in this previous video. And one thing I think this word is very important point. This is my mistake. I would say when suppose this was a Teflon and titanium piston, and when you used to cut it, I think use a proper sharp knife. Never try to use a old card, because just see this tag. And I didn't see that tag, and I put that surgery was wonderful. But after 48 hours, or you can say 20, in fact 12 hours, 13 hours, patient is having severe vertigo. And when I checked it, everything was fine. His hearing was not bad. Then I had to take it, and after, when I took out this piston, I could see some just tag was there that was creating problem, and I had to re-explore it and put one more piston, and the patient was okay, finally okay, hardly some loss was there. And one thing that's no fight when open the piston, because this is the quality of the piston. If you are using good quality piston, then that memory is very good. Like in this case, the surgeon is trying to engulf the piston in the incus, and that is not a good, because it can damage your incus, it can dislocate it. So open the piston properly, then try to insert it in the incus. And same thing, if you are not very much comfortable with this technique, then one more option is there. You can use this technique, and I think this is one more better way. Try to make a nick on the opening side, and then try to put, though I don't have a video, I had a video, but it is not very good, but that's why I make this picture. That one more way you can insert your piston very well in the incus. And I think two more are there. This is regarding. Okay. That's why never remove attic bone excessively in the stapes surgery, because otherwise what happens, you get a secondary retraction, and you may get a exposure of your piston in the attic area, and that can lead to recurrent discharge from the area, maybe granulations. And these are the cases you may have to go for the revision surgery, because it can damage your piston and recurrent discharge. So these are people keeping piston with beeping drum. It should be avoided. So try to avoid these steps. These are few things which there's almost hundreds videos are there, but I think these are few points I wanted to share, because since morning these were left, that's why I just shared this thing. Thank you.
Thank you, boss.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Very nice.
Super.
Good points. Very good points.
Super.
Satish, I think, are we at the end?
Yes.
So, anybody has any questions, or we call it a day?
I think we should call it a day.
Dr. Kakkad sir is there. One question from his side.
Yes.
I can ask, this is last on case recurrence is associated with the incus necrosis and blood supply of the incus from bone marrow inside incus body, and not from the stapedial tendons. So revision is problem, so be careful. Some comment from Dr. Kakkad sir. In obliterative case, recurrence is associated with incus necrosis, and blood supply of the incus is from bone marrow inside incus body, and not from the stapedial tendons. So revision is problem, so be careful during surgery. These are the points.
Yeah. Agreed. We said that.
Okay, so see you all on Thursday, 4
Yes,
p.m. with
Thank you very much.
some live surgeries, interesting one from ear, nose and throat, from basic to advanced. And
We did justice to almost everything in stapes surgery. Or
yeah, this is a huge topic, you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
discuss more and more.
Boss, we can go on
and-
another day if necessary.
And in our coming webinars, we'll be keeping some more variety of stapes situation, including revisions.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
thank
Okay,
you,
buddy.
boss.
Bye,
Thank
bye,
you,
Ashim.
thank you,
Bye-bye.
Sun Pharma.
Bye,
Big
bye.
thanks to Sun Pharma, and big thanks to Pachori boss for
Yes.
everything. Thank you.
Thank you very
Sun
much.
Pharma, thank you.
Thank you, Khanna boss.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay Khanna sir. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.
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 Bye.